Release the Kraken!
Greetings, fellow game designers around here at Duck Studios, and welcome back to our Not Minecraft tutorial series. It is the summer, so these are going to roll out a little bit quicker. But yeah, here we go. So in our previous one, we had been making these textures here, and we've already made the icons to go into our inventory and made some backgrounds. In this one, I want to go ahead and start texturing these and show you the next part in making these easy to texture and inventory accessible. So we're not going to build the inventory yet because we still need some things before going into the inventory, and I'm going to try to do like a linear approach to this to make things a little bit easier. So yeah, so let's go ahead and jump in. Things to note: I did update the version of Unreal that I'm using, so I'm now using 4.26. So the project has been updated to 4.26, and the reason for that is it's easier to update when the two are close enough together versus it getting too many versions apart. So 4.27 is coming out, so rather than jumping to 4.27 and then trying to push 4.24 to 4.27, which may have some dependency gaps. And I'm already a version over because 4.25 came out and I kind of skipped to 4.26. I just went ahead and did the update so that I wouldn't have any compatibility issues going forward. So I recommend you guys, if you haven't done that yet, to do that. But without further ado, let's jump in to our main project here, and you can see that we, of course, can remove blocks and we can place blocks, which is great, but our blocks are boring, so we're going to go ahead and make those not quite so boring. So let's go over to our block folder and see what we got. So we have our block, and I want to make a few quick changes to this. The first one is I'm going to change the name, because once we start making our blocks, we want an easy way to modify them. So we're going to start out with a single block that is going to be the parent of all of the other blocks that are going to exist in our game. So I'm going to rename this one. Just go ahead and right click, go to rename. I'm going to call this one block parent. Hey, that was quick and painless. Okay, and then all the other blocks that spawn will be a child of this, and it'll just be easier to locate later on, and if we have to make any updates to any of them, we can usually do it from the parent. Alright, so the next thing we want to do is start bringing in our materials for our blocks. I'm not sure if you've done that yet. I have not, so I'm going to go ahead and just go to my materials folder here, and I'm going to drag in my materials from my materials folder. Okay, so here are my materials. I have my cobalt, I've got my cracks that I made, the dirt, my granite cobalt mixture, my grass. I don't remember what this one is, but I think that's all I need for now. Let's drag those in. I'm actually going to drag these into my textures folder. So I'm going to come down, grab my textures folder, and drag these in. Awesome. To quote a very old and dated movie, easy as cake. Go ahead and grab one of these. It doesn't matter which one. Any of these textures is fine. We're just going to convert this to a material. And if we go to materials, we may actually have one already made. Boom, 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 boom. And I do. I actually have the block color. So when we first brought in our block, it came in this color, and we did name the material block color. If you don't have one already named, you can go to your block, static meshes here, double click it. It doesn't really matter the order you do this, and you can make a material from any point in here, but I'm just using the stuff that I already have. But if you open up the static mesh and you find your material, if it doesn't have a name, you can hover over it. You see it says game and materials, and then whatever the name of it is. If it's like Lambert 1 or something like that, just make sure you change it. To navigate to it, you can hit the little eyeglass here, and it'll bring it up, and then you can right click and then rename. Okay, but since we already have it, I'm not going to make a new one. Let's go ahead and just jump right in. So open that. This is our base material construct, and we have our base shader and our color, but we're not going to use this parameter. I'm going to go ahead and nuke that. Instead, I'm going to create a texture but I'm not going to make a regular texture. I want a texture parameter because we want to be able to change this out whenever we have a different block. So for our grass block or our stone block or whatever, we want to be able to change this out. So I'm going to go ahead and right click and do a texture. And I want to do a texture 2D, but I want it to be a parameter. So I'm going to come down, so texture sample parameter 2D. And I'm going to call this block texture. Then I'll plug in the RGB to base color. That's all well and good. And for the default color on here, I'm going to go ahead and just all the way down, find my block texture, default texture here. And whichever one you want to use, I'm going to use my grass one for my default, so it'd be grass. Hey, that's cool. What's a shame is we're not going to see it wrapped correctly, but it's okay. So I'm going to go ahead and just pull that up. Okay, so from here we're good. I'm going to go ahead and hit the checkbox. Save it. I'm going to jump back to our block material or our block static mesh, and you can see it has been updated. Hey, it looks all well and good. Let's minimize. And look, all the blocks in our scene have already been updated. Hey, hey, hey. So now let's make it so it's a bit easier to modify the materials. Let's go back up to our blocks here. And I'm going to jump into the block. And I'm going to add a new variable, so variable type. And I'm going to make sure I'm on the graph. So if you start out over here in the viewport, just make sure you're on the graph. And grab this. I'm going to name it. This is going to be block dynamic material. And then right off of begin play, I'm going to drag that out and do create dynamic material instance. And it does want to find out who, so I'm going to grab the one with the block. Okay, and then right off of here, let's go ahead and just move these out of the way. So for the source material, I'm going to do a get material. So right off of our block, let's drag out, we'll do get material. Now be careful you don't get the materials, that's not the same thing. You want to come down to rendering and get material. Alright, so we have this. And the index will stay at 0. If you happen to have more than one material index, if we go to our block, you can see that we only have one material here. But if you have additional material slots, you would specify with this element number which one you are using. Okay. The optional name we can leave as empty. And then over here, we have this return value. And normally we would just promote to variable. But in this case, I know that I want a dynamic material. And you can see the output is material instance dynamic object. So I'm going to go to the one that I created. And just so you can know how to change these by hand, right? So I'm going to go up to the Boolean here. And I'll make this dynamic material. And I come down to material instance dynamic and choose the object reference. And now I can plug this in. So that gets set right off the bat. But now that we have this, this is pretty much creating an empty object for our material slot. But we really don't want this to always be this grass color. We want to be able to change it out, right? Which is the whole purpose of building this, because this allows us to get access to it and talk to this parameter. So instead of running this off of begin play, I'm going to go ahead and just move this up here. And I'm going to break the link. Come here, you. Let's move this down. We'll make this into a custom event here. Just get rid of these for now. Do a right-click, custom event. And I'll call this one set material. Here, I'll change that to set block material. Plug that in. and then we'll run this part from begin play. But I'll show you the other reason why we're doing it off of here and not here. Go ahead and drag off of this and do set block material. And then from here, we want to set the material type we're going to use. So off of our material reference here, go ahead and drag off and do set texture parameter value. So texture parameter value, which is what our texture is, right? This is our texture parameter. You can see parameter 2D. And the name of this is block texture. So make sure you have the correct name. So block texture. It is case sensitive. And then down here in this drop down, you can see it has a list of all of our textures. Well, that's awesome, isn't it? But wait, how do I change this? Do I have to do this in every one? Well, yeah, technically you do. Whenever we create a child of our parent, we will have the option to tell it which one to use. But I don't want to just do it there. I would like to be able to specify which one of these in a pretty simplistic fashion without having to, always, drag and drop and type stuff in. So instead, I'm going to go ahead and compile. Say we're going to build a structure to store some of this data so that our inventory later on will have that information so it can use it as well. So let's go ahead and minimize here. Let's go down to our system. Go ahead and right click and do a blueprint, do a structure. Let's go ahead and call this block structure. No, come on, spelling. And we'll open up our block structure. And then in here, we're going to give it a bunch of stuff so that we can kind of keep track of all of those variables. So the first one we're going to do as you can call it the name of the block or the type of the block, but the name and the type are kind of the same. So if it's a granite block, then it would be of type granite, right? And a granite block would also be its name. So whichever. So I'll call this the type of block. And this will be a string. Then the next one will be the count of the blocks, so however many blocks we have. So you can say quantity or count or whatever makes sense for your brain. So I do count. To make this an integer. We do need an item description, so whatever the material is, I'm going to call this a description. Make it a string. We also want to store the icon for our object, so icon. This will be a texture 2D. So come down the list, texture 2D. We'll do this as an object reference. This one is going to be the texture itself, so texture. It can also be a texture 2D. And then lastly, we want the class of the object. So this is going to be the class. And the class we're going to use will be the block parent. So block parent. Oh, and very important, we don't want this to be the object reference. We want this to be the class reference. So block parent. Let's go back in there. Make sure we're using the class reference here. That way, when we go to spawn a specific actor, it uses the class reference to do so. So we want to make sure we're using the correct one. And we can save that there. Let's jump back into our block parent. And down here in our list of variables, go ahead and hit the variable button. We're going to call this block structure. And it will be of type block structure. And go up here and grab that. And I'm going to make these public. That way we have access to them when we drag them into the world. So I'm going to go ahead and compile that. And if I minimize, I select this block. If I come down to its list, we have a block structure. And you can see it has the details right here. And we can drag and drop and load them in manually if we wanted to. Okay. So now that we're in here, we have that. We are going to drag in the block structure. We'll do a get. And then we're going to open it up by splitting that pin. So right click, split pin. And we're just going to take the material or the texture that we set here and plug it into here. Hey, 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 look at that. Amazing. Okay, go ahead and compile and save. And let's go back to our block structure here. Some things that we should preset. So for the type, we should have something in here. So I'll go ahead and just say none for now. The count can be 0. The description I'll also do as none. And then the icon and the textures can be empty, and then this one can also be none. Save that. And jump back to my block parent. You'll see that whenever we update the structure, that it does ask us to recompile. So let's go ahead and just do that again. Save it. And now let's go ahead and make our first child object. So go ahead and minimize. Go into the blocks. Right click on the parent. And up top here we have create child blueprint class. Now it's going to look and act the same as the other, except this is going to be a child of it. It's going to inherit everything we've just done on the parent. So I'm going to call this one grass. Go ahead and open it up. And you can see as we jump in, right here off of our details on the right, we have all the stuff. And you can even see the dynamic material it's asking for, but it doesn't really exist yet, so that one doesn't matter. But down here we have our type, our count, and whatever. The count will always be 0, by the way. This is only going to stack once it goes into the inventory, so its default count should always be 0. For the name, this is going to be, or the type in this case, is going to be grass. And then the description, I'm going to say a chunky piece of sod. The icon, I didn't drag my icons in yet, so I'm going to skip that. For the texture, I'm going to choose my grass texture. And then for the class, this one's going to be, if I hit the drop down, we do have the block parent, but because this is a child of the block parent, it is already able to add its own. So I'm going to go ahead and grab the grass. Hey, look at that. So it is the block parent, but an extension of it, which is the grass. Compile that. And just to not leave this blank, let's go ahead and drag in our icons here. So go back to my textures, let's go and grab our others. And I could have sworn I rendered all the other ones out, but I guess I didn't. I'm going to grab my dirt and my grass, we'll drag those in. And I'll jump back into our our block here. And then in the drop down, I'll do the grass icon as well. Compile, save. And if I minimize, of course, and I drag in my grassy block, you can see it looks like all the others. But that's not how I want this to work. I want this to show me which one it is right off the bat, right? So let's go ahead and make the second child. So you can either right-click and duplicate the current child that we have, or you can create a new child blueprint from the parent. Just make sure you're not duplicating the parent, because then it gets messy. So make that. This is going to be the dirt. So inside of my dirt here, this will be dirt. I got a jar of dirt. I've got a jar of dirt. Guess what's inside it? Dirt? No, a heart. And then the dirt texture. And this is going to be of the dirt type. Hey. That's cool, but you can see that this hasn't changed at all, right? It's still the grassy grass. We want this to be the dirt. Oh no. Also, since we're making child classes, just want to point out that if we jump over to the event graph here, you will see that the begin play has inherited stuff from the parent begin play. Okay. You don't have to nuke this or anything. All of the code for this is pretty much going to be on the parent, so I don't really have to worry about coding anything here. So why is this not updating? Well, it won't update until we press the play button. So if I go in and I bring in a dirt over here, you can see all the stuff loads in, and if I hit play, there they are. Hey, that's cool. But what if I wanted this to be the correct thing when I drag and drop? Well, then we have to do a little bit extra, which we're going to do right now. So let's go to the parent, and then inside of the parent, I'm going to go up to the construction script. So the construction script is always running in the background. Luckily, it really only runs during the pre-construct phase of this, so when you're live in the editor, it's being read pretty much off of a tick event. And all we want to do here is just drag out, and we're going to do set block texture. Or sorry, we called it block material, didn't we? So I'm going to go ahead and scroll up, and there it is, yeah, set block material. And once I do that and I compile it, you can see that's running. And if I jump back into the viewport here, you will see they get updated. Hey, that's cool. Now these have no material. They're pretty much going to get nothing, which is fine. So what I'm going to do now is get rid of all of the block parents out of the scene and just keep my actual grass one. So I got to nuke that, nuke that. Let's get rid of all these. And you can see in my list here, they're all right here. So block, I'll go all the way down to the end of my block list. Grab the other block. Let's go ahead and nuke those. And I'll start this off with my dirt. So just put my dirt in here. And we'll make a dynamic thing later. But for right now, just to have everything good, make that center. Now let's make this even easier. Let's go to our block parent. And let's make it so that whenever we drag a block into our scene, it snaps nicely into our grid of 64. So I'm going to drag off of here. I'm going to do set actor location. Split the pin. And then the location we're going to set will be just like we did for our block placement code. So if I go ahead and right click here, I'll do get actor location. Split the pin. And we're going to divide the world into sections based on the block size. So off of here, we'll do a divide, float by float. And it's really messy to hard code a value, so I'm going to go ahead and make a variable called block size. Make that a float. Compile. Set this to 64. We will truncate. Which will remove any of the decimals from the division. And then we will get a result and multiply that. So multiply times float by 64. Or by our block size. And to keep it from being messy, I'll just drag that in again into the block size. We can just plug that in. So X to X, Y to Y, and Z to Z. Compile that, save that. And now whenever we put a block in, if I move it, you'll see it. Looks like it's not going anywhere, right? So let's go ahead and change the snaps here. I'm turn snapping, do this to about, let's do like 100. And as I drag this, you'll see it snaps to 64. So if I drag to there, 64, 64, 64, and 64. So this is going to make life a lot easier as we're bringing these in. Hey, look at that. So let's drag this out. And look, we can just make new ones. And because these are inheriting from the block parents, it's pretty easy. We don't have to worry about going back and coding each one individually. So now if you want to drag in some grass blocks, drag in the grass block. And whatever, you can just lay this out. So let's go ahead and do that. Grab these. Hopefully I didn't spawn those into themselves. Okay, I didn't. If you're not sure how I'm duplicating, I'm holding Alt when I drag. I always forget that some beginner folks probably won't know that. I am a terrible, terrible teacher. Ah, come here, you. And if I hit play, here we are. Move around. I can right click and things will delete the way they should. And if I click, it will spawn. Now this is spawning the parent, but we'll have to go ahead and change how that spawns a little bit later. But hey, it is looking up on the world. So this is the quick and dirty approach of setting up our materials, and they will change dynamically, and that's awesome. And the next one, we're going to look at the damage. So whenever we hit the block, it'll chisel away and kind of fracture a little bit, and then we'll start adding these to our inventory system, and yeah, that'll be pretty awesome. So go ahead and save your work, and I shall see you next time. Hey guys, thanks for checking out the channel. Misty and I both thank you. If you enjoyed that video you just watched, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe. Also, if you'd like to support the channel, I'm getting into NFTs. Those are big these days. I was thinking about creating my own coin, but we'll get into that at a later date. But NFTs are pretty hot right now. I'm converting my artwork to NFTs. You can see my Rarible page right here. Well, I got 4 items, but I'm adding one as they go. They're not cheap to make, so I gotta make them as I go. If you want to support the channel other ways, of course, there's Lame Duck Studios merch, which you can see right here on my Teespring store, as well as Amazon. Speaking of Amazon, I have my books up there under Bruce RF, which is my pen name. Life and Times of Donna Martin, as well as The Guardian's Path of Ascension. You can flip through those and see the reviews, and grab a copy, read it, tell me what you think. It helps me out as an author. It also helps me out as, everything goes back into the stuff that I'm doing. So more content for you. If you want to keep up with me throughout the day, or just kind of see what's going on in life, hit me up on Twitter under BruceRF1. Again, that is my pen name. If you want to see what's going on my blog, ronflowersjr.me, you can see what I'm writing about, what else is going on in life, difficulties that I have with my projects that I'm working on. A lot of my devlog stuff kind of goes there before it comes here, so it's another way of kind of getting into that. I do also have a Patreon where I release content early if you want to get access to things ahead of time, because most of the stuff that I produce, I do things on Sundays and I post on Wednesdays most often, but it goes to Patreon first, so it's kind of there usually a week or so ahead of time, and then it has a release schedule. So if you want to see things early, go there. Let's see, what else is going on. You can also follow me on Facebook under you can do the Lame Duck Studios Facebook or the Bruce RF Facebook. Both of those are available. And a lot of these links are down in the description, so if you want to just hit those up and just click on them and follow them through, that's another way of getting there. Also, we are at 1,300 subscribers. Woo! We're this close to 10,000. But small milestones first. Let's get to 2,000 subscribers, and then we will continue our road building toward that 10,000 milestone. That is going to be pretty awesome for this channel, my humble channel. So yeah, that's all I have for you on this outro. It's a bit of a long one, but a lot of stuff going on. Anyways, stay tuned, and I shall see you next time.